Still trying to get that little noodle. Wouldn't think that would be that hard, but coordinating them fingers together just sometimes takes a little bit. Just wanted to make a little video on this oak. This is one that I semi-restored, I guess. I didn't do no major work on it, but I did several smaller things to bring it back to life and get it back into playing condition. So I just wanted to tell a little bit about that. I believe, according to the serial numbers on this one, and what I can research, I believe this is a 1961 model. It has the inside label with the serial number, going by the serial number code, and plus this one had never had geared tuners on it. It was originally, the friction style tuners. So I think this is a 1961 model. When I got it, it had just an extreme amount of play wear, and well, looks like I might even be putting some back on it. When I got it though, it had an extreme amount of play wear on the fretboard. It was actually very pretty, but at the same time, it was just years of player build up and wear, and so I took and restored that using a scour pad, just like a regular dish scour pad, a little green square, spongy looking like things. I used one of those and some F1 oil made by Music No Bad. I put the F1 oil on the fretboard. It conditions it and also helps the scour pad to do its work. And then you massage that fretboard. Make sure you get all the way up to the frets and everything. All the way down. But it works wonders on restoring a fretboard. When this one came in, it also only had one fret dot. I think it had been subjected to a little bit of weird temperatures and things, and maybe humidities, and the fret dots had all popped out except for one. I could not get that one out, so I had to drill it out. But the owner ordered some nice mother of pearl fret dots, a little bit goldish colored, a little bit of tinted, so that they match the oak better than just real bright white ones. I think they look really good. The frets on this one were in really, really bad condition. I'm assuming the same thing, just one thing, years and years of use, but expanding and contracting, in the different temperatures and humidities. A lot of the frets had got really uneven and kind of warped and wavy on it, bending up on the ends a little bit. I didn't actually have to pull none of the frets on this one. What I did is I took a tiny hammer and worked on those frets, just very lightly. I would clamp them down, where they were good and straight, and had a raised end. I would work on that little fret one at a time and straighten them up, get them good and straight again. Put a little drop of glue in the end of the fret to make sure that reseals that and reglues it in good, and then I just reworked all the frets, leveled them all, recrowned them, and polished them up to look good. And what I'm kind of proud of that fret job on it. It just really looks good. I'd already got where I could do fret end jobs real good and polishing those. But this is, first time I'd really completely reworked a nuke and leveling all the frets up and recrowned them and all like that. But and for a nuke like this, it was definitely worth it. Let's see what else. It originally came with the original friction tuners, and the owner had ordered or sent along with these Goto UPTLs, and those are the best tuner on the market as far as I'm concerned. I absolutely love those. I don't know of any any tuners that just work as good or look as good to me as these Goto UPTs and UPTLs. They look really good. I should have wiped the headstock off a little bit. I've been playing this one quite a bit since I've had it strung up. See what else we've done to it. Also, I've done some modification to the bridge on this one. The action on the Ook, with the saddle lowered as as low as I could before I started working on the bridge, I just had way too high of an action on it. It didn't really need a neck reset with the the curvature, everything, how the neck set, it was all good, but it had an extremely high stock bridge, high depth stock bridge on it. Strings, were a good bit high off the soundboard. So instead of trying to reset the neck, I decided to take that bridge down to a more decent looking bridge. So what I did is I of course destrung it, and I had to remove the saddle. And now when I removed the saddle on this one, I've never had this happen. I just lightly grabbed it with some pliers just because it was too snug to come out with my fingers. And well, it exploded on me. I mean, really exploded on me. And like a whole bunch of little sharp pieces and shards. I actually got one of them actually cut my thumb, bleeding a little bit. Come to find out, the original saddles in these are ivory. And well, when I reckon it just had a little bit of grip on one end when we're kind of stuck in that slot. And when I pulled it up slightly on the other end, that extremely old ivory was brittle, and well, like I said, it just blew apart. I didn't have no safety glasses or nothing on. I wasn't expecting anything like that. So luckily I didn't get nothing in my eye or anything. But just something to note, if you are working on these old Favillas, they can have ivory nuts and saddles on them. And well, they can be a little brittle, but if you work careful around them, you should be able to save them. The one that was on this one was in a little bit rough condition anyways, and well, it was very, very short, so I had to replace it anyways with a bone one. And well, to be honest, I think it actually improved the tone of the when I done that. But I shaved that saddle down. The saddle now is still 6 millimeters high. It was 9 millimeters high before. Well, not the saddle, the bridge. The bridge was 9 millimeters high. The bridge itself, not counting the saddle, just the bridge. So like I said, I took everything off, and well, first I took a big saw, okay, hand saw, carpenter's hand saw, and well, I put some cutting board and everything on top of the ukulele to protect it, so that if my saw was to go down a little too far or something, or I got it a little cockeyed and it touched the top of the ukulele, it would scratch it all up. So I covered it with some really thin cutting board, and then I took that saw, and the reason I use that saw, I even have some smaller saws and things, but the width of that nut slot, the saddle slot, needed to stay the exact same, and consistent. That saw I had the exact same kerf. That just means the width of cut, when it cuts, as that saddle slot. So that's why I wanted to use that particular saw for it. Anyways, after it was all covered up, so I protected the ukulele from any new damage, I set that saw in the slot, and then just cut the slot down to the depth that I wanted it at. After that, I took actually took a rasp and well, some coarse sandpaper, and I took planed off the top of that bridge. Took a good little bit of wood off of it, And well, like I said, I had the top protected with all that, that real thin cutting board. I had it just taped on, on the top everywhere. I'm going to be posting some pictures and a post on this, and just on what all I did to it. So that was protecting the ook, and I just it's just a piece of wood. When you get to that point, you're just working on a piece of wood. You just don't want to go too far or anything like that. So worked it real slow, and make sure kept checking my level and things like that. But got it got it down there where it. Well, I mean, you can't really tell it's been worked on. Besides, it's a little bit dark right now. Just where I re-oiled it after I got done with it with some of that F1 oil. It soaked it in, quite a bit. But that's already lightening up, and it'll continue lightening up until it looks just like the rest of the rosewood. But that oil will help protect it, and you definitely want to put something on there, to re-protect it. It did have kind of like a finish. They actually put the finish over the bridge on these. But I didn't want to try to replicate a finish on it because it would end up just looking worse. Once this lightens up, it'll look factory. You won't ever even be able to tell that it had anything done on it. And we're really, the camera makes it look a little darker sometimes than it actually is. You can't tell that it's really had any work done on that bridge at all. And on the back of this, see if I can shine the light right on that. Right where I'm shining that light, right in here, okay? And on the other side, right over here, there are two kind of hairline cracks. They might have been a little bit bigger than what you'd say a hairline crack, which is probably called two little stress, cracks. Right along there, right along here. And what I did with those is, I took and cleaned the cracks out, any little dirt and stuff like that. And then I took some super glue, very thin super glue, to not only does it restabilize that crack, it glues that crack back together so that it can't flex and get any bigger, that kind of thing. But also it seals, reseals the finish. Okay, I don't know if you can see, but it resealed. You can't even see the crack in the finish. There's no actual crack now. Can't feel a crack or anything. You could feel them really good before, and they also had a little bit of raised up finish around those cracks. But anyways, after I put that super glue in them to fill those cracks good, and you want to make sure that glue really works its way in there. I use the tip of the bottle and you work it back and forth. Just so that it gets down into the crack. After that is done, it dries real good. I take a razor or something like that and shave that dried glue it's on top back off. And after you've done that, it's also gets down into shaving the actual finish, where that finish, like I said, was bubbled up just a little bit around those cracks. You want to get that back down completely smooth and flat, just like the rest of the finish. And once that's done, it kind of had satined up the oak a little bit, and where I'm touching it there is making it look a little worse than it is. But you shine the light right back on it, right on it, you can kind of see where I worked on it there. But it satined up the finish where I had worked on those, and scraped all that down and everything. I had to kind of re-shine the finish over that, to match back with the ukulele, because it had these little satin, spots on it, where I corrected that. But in the light, when I'm shining on it, you can actually see them a little bit. But in person, you're really, really hard pressed to see it. And even when you shine the light on it, it don't really look as obvious as it's looking in that. So I'm really, really, really proud of how those turned out. I've sealed some cracks before, but doing it right here like this, in the middle of a finish, and having that semi-gloss finish, and trying to match that back, it was kind of a delicate little process there, and to make it look good and everything again. So I was really tickled about that. Besides the general cleanup, I believe that is it. I did do a full setup and all on it, which of course like I said, did all that work so I could lower the action down back here where it needed to be correctly. But I also lowered it down up here at the nut. It was still a good little bit high. So I brought it down and gave it a real good action, and it's just an absolute amazing player. These little Favillas are a 19-inch scale baritone. Most baritones, it seems, are 21-inch scale. I'm no expert on baritones. I've pretty much ignored tenors and baritones for a long time. I've been concert only, and then started getting a soprano or two. And the only reason this is even in my studio is because a dear friend wanted one, bought this one, and it needed some work to get it back to playable shape. And well, they sent it to me because I'm more than happy to do it. Which they're a good friend and done a lot for me. It ain't like they taking advantage of me in any way. It'd be the other way around if anything. But like I said, they snuck this into my studio, and I got this thing going. And which it's a little bit of a bonding process on the oud, just working on them, especially one that ain't in playable condition, and kind of bringing it back to life. That's just a real kind of a bonding experience with an instrument, anyways. But when strung this thing up and got to playing on it, and well, I knew baritone sounded good, and these things have an amazing reputation. It's just as good as the old Martins, from what I've heard. Like I said, I don't know anything about baritones, and I don't know anything about the old Martins, but that's what people say that do know about them. I was just so impressed with it, but what got me is, as I was, testing it out and playing it, and just playing the same stuff that I do on my concerts. Well, it just wasn't nowhere near as hard as it was, almost a year and a half ago when I tried a baritone out last time. Doing them fingers, I had to, stretch them a little bit, further apart, but at least on the chords that, that I'm using and learning, well, it seems to work. And, that's just surprising to me. It is a little more painful to me. And, well, like I said, my problem is I don't have that much, lateral, stretch. I think that's what I heard somebody refer to, lateral stretch. In my fingers. Now they'll stretch wide like that, at least fairly wide, okay, and like that. But I can't, my fingers lock up, see, if I'm trying to, keep them, out like that and try to do any kind of chord with it, they're just going to start locking up on me and get really, really painful. So I have to, keep them up, more balled up. And the spread on when they're balled up, you can see. That's as far as I can do, and my fingertips want to all, kind of come in toward the center of my palm there. I don't know if that makes sense. And I think what that's called is called trigger finger. But anyways, if you want to sit down with ukuleles, I tried to pick the size that fit my fingers the best, and that was concert. And played only concert for over a year. I did have one sent to me, to try out or work on or something. I played it for a day, but just not that much interest. Then got into a soprano that just really impressed me, and that gave me a little bit of a fever. Now I got a couple of sopranos, but now this baritone has just kind of got everything stirred up. I've just completely ignored tenors and baritones, and not because I don't like them and don't like the sound. From the very beginning, I've always gravitated toward the bigger sounds. If it was as comfortable to play as my concert ukuleles as a baritone, well, I probably would have never had a concert ukulele. And that's just being honest. It's about that sound. I've always gravitated toward it. Well, anyways, now I have an awesome respect for the concert ukuleles. And I'll never not have a concert ukulele. But I never thought I would ever say this, about having a baritone. But I will have to get me one of these baritones, one of these short scale, baritones. This is just amazing sounding. The neck and all on these, and I'm assuming maybe some guitar players and things might not like these. I don't, I know a lot of people prefer bigger, wider, nuts and necks. On their ukuleles, but this measures 36 millimeter nut and 27 millimeter string spacing. It has a little bit of a very round profile on the back of the neck, which this is a baritone. and all I've got to compare to is concerts. So I don't want to say that it's got a big round profile neck, because it might not compared to other baritones. But to compare to to concerts, it's got a big rounded neck. Compared to a concert, this looks like holding a baseball bat. But like I said, the neck is not bad in any way. And the more I play it, well, the more I realize stuff I can do. And well, like I said, well, I never could move around on a baritone like this at all when I had one before. I tried it was a Kayla, and those are close to the 21-inch scale. So I'm sure that makes a big difference too. But like I said, there is a little bit of pain and stuff in my hand, but this oak is just so amazing that I will find me, another one of these that need fixing up and restoring and, brought back to life. And I'm going to get me one of these for my own collection. You can find decent deals on them, and when I'm not looking for one, they seem like they was everywhere. But now that I've got, kind of got the fever and see this one, there's a few posted at maybe decent prices, but they're still not cheap. And I know I can find me a real good deal if I'm just patient. And well, like I said, I'm not going to go to baritone and start chunking my concerts away in any ways. I'll never be able to play a baritone anywhere near to the level I can play a concert. No, as of right now, the simple stuff that I'm currently doing on concert, I can do that on baritone. At least everything that I've tried that I can think of that I know to do, I can do it on the baritone. But I've also avoided a lot of more difficult chords and things just cause hurting my fingers and that kind of thing, or just my fingers not cooperating at all to do them. And so I know that there's definitely a lot of chords and stuff that I could not even attempt on a baritone. But like the B flat, that one for some reason is very easy for me on the baritone. I think actually the B flat is easier for me to chord on this baritone than it is on any of my concerts. Just the bigger scale and the way it lets me hold my hand. And you can see I don't, of course, use proper positioning, okay? I use pawpaw positioning because that's what's comfortable to me, and otherwise I'm going to hurt myself. And if I hurt myself, then I ain't going to play. And, well, it's all about me wanting to play, and I play hours a day. So I play where my hand can do it, and I don't worry about, if it's right or not. Anyways, as long as it's out of the strings and ain't causing no buzzing and I'm hitting the right strings when I want to, I figure that's good enough, right? Nobody's paying pawpaw yet, so they ain't got no say in it. But anyways, I'm just so surprised that, I can handle a baritone as good as I can now. So long on concert, and getting my fingers used to, to being more accurate and giving them a lot more, dexterity and strength have really helped me. And well, like I said, I think I would like to have me a baritone in my collection. I don't think by any means it would take over my playtime. Sometimes it might, some days, but that hand it gets tired a whole lot quicker than it does on these concerts. So even with building strength and time and stuff, I'll never be as proficient on baritone as I am my concerts. And well, there's a pink elephant in the room, if I'm willing to get a baritone, well, there's a scale in between concert and baritone, right? Exactly right in between. 17-inch scale tenor. And so if I can move this good on a baritone and work with it, well then, I'm going to be able to move around even a little bit better on the tenor. And so, well, that's kind of excited me a little bit. It would have to be the right tenor. I think, the real wide necks, or at least string spacing. String spacing, I think, is more important to me than the actual nut width. If a oak has a wider nut and that more narrow string spacing, they don't seem to bother me at all. But a real wide nut with a real wide string spacing, and I really seem to notice the stretch a lot, and it makes my hand, a lot more tighter, trying to chord and things. Just noticeable to me. So like I said, with any type of hand condition, try to do it, so that's the most easy and most comfortable for you, so you can play and practice longer. And if it takes longer to practice to learn how to do it like that, then you got longer to practice. But anyways, that's the way I see it. I appreciate you watching. Long video. Thank you.